Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the road to 18-inch arms. So this is a bit of a different episode because just the other day, Revival Fitness posted a video called The Realest Natty or Not Ever Made, and he listed the top 10 signs to tell if someone's a fake natural. So I was heavily convinced that I was natural prior to watching this video, but after watching that video, I'm a little bit skeptical of myself, and I believe everybody should be skeptical of myself for these 10 reasons. So let's run through them. Let's see if they're legit. Let's see if I'm natural or not. And it should be pretty obvious by the end of this, I'd say. So the top 10 signs. Number one is it's plastered all over their social media. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I plaster it all over my social media. I actually didn't even really address if I was natural or not for the first year of my channel. But I have made a handful of responses to certain natty or nots or addressing my natural status in the last year or so. So I would say it's fairly obvious, and I do make it pretty obvious that I am natural, and of course I do claim natural, so that's probably a red flag for myself versus if I just didn't address it at all. So it's one of those things where if you're natural, you really can't be, because if you say you're natural, that's a red flag. It means you're just getting defensive and hiding your true status. But if you don't address it, then obviously you're not natural because you're just ignoring the topic altogether. So that's a bit of a tough one, I guess. Number two, you make PEDs an issue of moral superiority. I don't have a huge stance on this, so I'd say I kind of have a green flag for this one. I would say it's not too far-fetched to say, from my perspective, that PEDs are an issue of moral superiority, because I do believe health is kind of the first and foremost thing, and if you're doing something that actively takes away from your health, when you could have just done that entire process naturally, you could argue maybe it's not that far-fetched, but I don't know. I'm going to leave that one as I think I'm safe on this one. Number three, I'm friendly with other fakes. So I actually do have some associates that kind of fall for all of these red flags and all of these 10 signs. So I would say I am friendly with other fakes for sure. So that's another red flag for me. Number four, eye-popping results in a short amount of time. This one is interesting because if you actually have been following the channel for a while, I was stuck around 16.5-inch arms for kind of the first little over a year and a half of me starting the channel, and then slowly last summer I started to creep up a little bit towards 17. By November I hit 17, but now I'm almost at 18-inch arms, and there's no way that's possibly correlated with me discovering the Smith Machine JM press and preacher curls and pushing those as hard as I possibly can and documenting the whole thing. There's no way that's possible. It has to be PED. So I'm just going to say this is a major red flag for me. No natural puts almost an inch on their arms in less than a year time frame, especially when they're like beyond the natural limit anyways, like myself. Naturals can't really get beyond 16-inch arms. That's basically what I can tell. I think Steve Reeves had 17.5-inch arms when he won Mr. America too, so any bigger than that is just really suspicious. Number five, thank God, ripped all the time. I've been ripped for a total of probably 4 weeks, aside from ages 0 through 16. Actually, 1 through 16, I was a fat baby, but since I've been lifting, I haven't really been ripped, so thank God. Number six, rapid PRs. This is sketchy because I'm actually surprisingly strong on a handful of lifts, especially back when I used to powerlift quite a bit. Like, I would add 50 plus pounds to my deadlift in like very short periods of time, and that's back when I was small. So yeah, kind of a red flag. I would say my ability to gain strength is definitely a red flag, especially on some lifts that other people don't do where I just get super strong on those. Definitely a red flag, I would say. Kind of a bonus one in here. They have the best style in the gym, especially if they wear barbell apparel. That's an interesting one because I do wear barbell apparel in basically every session. Well, actually, yes, every session, every time I'm in the gym, and most of the time outside of the gym too. And this is a red flag because you're just focused on the way you look, and you care about the way you look. And if you care that much about the way you look, of course you're just going to wear the best clothes you can. And it's obviously correlated with taking PEDs too, because anyone that takes PEDs has this obsessive disorder where they care a ton about their appearance. And if you care at all about your appearance, obviously you would take PEDs, obviously. Number seven, sudden disappearances followed by big returns. I think I'm safe on this one too, because I've been uploading very consistently for a very long time now. And I think that's a pretty good green flag for me, is that I do make pretty steady progress, although sometimes I do make really big changes and big improvements in a short time frame, which I touched on earlier with my recent arm growth. And that's definitely a bit of a red flag. So I'd say I'm mostly safe on this. But typically, what I'll do is if when I'm off cycle, you'll usually see me wear bigger clothes like a sweatshirt or flannel, and I won't really show my training. So you could kind of make the argument both ways. And obviously, when I'm on cycle and when I'm taking PEDs, then I'm showing my training and wearing short sleeves and whatnot. So, kind of an in between on that one. Number 8. This is where he really gets me. Being big and weak, because there was a time frame where I actually stopped training my push movements and hip hinges. I didn't stop training my push movements, but I stopped training things that were really correlated with bench press. And actually, if you remember correctly, a couple years ago, not even maybe a little over a year and a half ago, I struggled to bench about 260, but I looked pretty big. So that's definitely a red flag. And then just a little over a year later, I benched 350 really easily, and it actually wouldn't be surprising at all if I trained bench for a handful of weeks and could bench 4 plates. So going from 260 to 405 without really training bench in just over a year, that's probably a pretty big red flag, I would say. I would also say I'm probably much bigger than I would be strength-wise in something like powerlifting, which you did reference. I actually don't really train hip hinges at all. I do them very inconsistently, and I usually do them in phases. I was supposed to be doing pen lat rows for a while, but I stopped doing pen lat rows, and in favor of some other stuff that I got. But basically, I'm obviously going to be very weak on squats and deadlifts with a barbell right now. I can probably squat, I don't know, 300 and change, maybe deadlift maybe around 400 pounds. So yeah, those are pretty low numbers, especially since they used to be much higher. So how would I get so much bigger with my numbers going down that much? Something's not really adding up. It's probably PEDs. It has to be. It can't be anything about training specificity. It has to be PEDs. That's definitely the first rational conclusion. Number 9, I think I'm getting away with this one too. High volume, frequency, and intensity all at once. Because this definitely isn't an active decision that anybody can make. This is something that is a hard rule you have to follow. Because if you choose to train with high frequency and intensity, you can't train with high volume, because you can try to, but the gym staff will just say, nope, no, you can't do this. So if you make the decision to train with high volume and frequency and intensity all at once, definitely not natural. It's one of those things where it's like, like I said, if you try and train with high frequency and intensity all at once and high volume on top of that, like the gym staff's probably going to tell you no, it's just not going to work. It just doesn't quite add up. There's no possible way that just doing higher volumes probably just a waste of time and energy, and it's not really negatively impacting you to a certain extent. So that one, yeah, I don't do high volume. I do low, maybe moderate volume, but I do train with not even really high frequency, probably just a moderate frequency twice a week. My intensity, I think it is pretty high though. I'll give myself that. And obviously, the recovery that I get from the PEDs is probably allowing for that high intensity. So yeah, probably another red flag just because of how hard I trained, especially on something like preacher curls. Like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense. And the best point of all, they make a living and gain influence from their physique. So for me, I always kind of thought it was my knowledge and just my good understanding of lifting. But looking back, it's like I failed English in high school. My chemistry teacher bailed me out and passed me so I could stay on the hockey team. I didn't go to college. Like, I'm really not that smart, obviously, so I would assume everything is just based on my physique. So this is a tricky one because obviously I have a financial and social incentive to take PEDs so I can get the biggest following possible. If you look at my channel, obviously I do make a living and gain influence from my physique. And this is obviously correlated with PEDs because there's no possible way that the vast majority of people actually want to stay natural and see what's possible naturally. There's no way that's the reason natty or knots are popular, so people can actually have a good gauge of who's natural and who's isn't, and what's a realistic level of physique to attain and whatnot. If I'm earning a living off of this, obviously I have a financial incentive to take PEDs and not just help people train naturally, because why wouldn't I just take PEDs and increase my following and make more money? There's no possible way that I'm complacent with the amount of money that I make and the amount of influence that I have. I just always have to have more because that's clearly my top priority, not just getting jacked and having fun with it. I'd say overall for the final verdict, I'm leaning towards not natural, but either way, happy April Fools, everybody.